big conversation of the day, and we're going to talk about Uniform Civil Code. Once again, why are we talking about it now? Because the Delhi High Court today backed the need for a common code for all while deciding on an appeal on a divorce petition. The Delhi High Court observed that the need for a uniform civil code as envisioned under Article 44 and has been reiterated from time to time by India's top court should come into being. Here is the Delhi High Court now saying what the Supreme Court has said in the past and is reiterating that this needs to come into existence, to the point that the High Court has actually sent the judgment to the Law Ministry. They have sent it to the government and said, well, the Law Ministry now needs to take appropriate steps as deemed fit for creation of the Uniform Civil Code. So not only has the Supreme Court been very clear about it in the past, and we'll give you those details as we go along in this conversation, but now it's another court which is speaking about it and reminding the government and the Law Ministry that this is something you need to look at. How did this come about? What was this case that the High Court was looking into? It was dealing with a petition involving the applicability of the Hindu Marriage Act to a couple belonging to the Meena community. Now, Meena community is a scheduled tribe, largely found in Rajasthan, and this couple was also from there. This couple got married as per the Hindu rituals. Sometime later, the husband filed for divorce. The wife challenged this divorce petition, saying that it cannot be as per the Hindu Marriage Act because the Meena community doesn't, and the SC and the STs don't come under this Hindu Marriage Act. So the divorce can't be decided as per this law. There were decisions taken by the family court. This matter then went to upper court and then landed up in the Delhi High Court. Now the High Court has said that because you got married as per the Hindu customs and rituals, and because this is what the Article 44 envisions, we should be able to decide on this matter as per the Hindu Marriage Act. So they have asked the lower court now, they've told the petitioners to go back to the lower court, and they've asked the lower court to adjudicate on this matter within 6 months as per the Hindu Marriage Act. That's as far as the case is concerned. But High Court's reminder to Law Ministry and the government about Uniform Civil Code has obviously triggered a big conversation. Now, every time UCC has been talked about by either the government or any opposition party, by the Law Commission and all of the reports that they have submitted, it boils down to a very simple argument. Those who say that in our country, rules should be the same for all. And so as per the Constitution, rules for marriage, for divorce, for inheritance or property distribution, all of that should be the same for all. There is the other side which says, no, it should be as per what our faith says it should be, as per what our caste dictates and our customs and our rituals and history dictates is what it should be. So we should be able to decide on the marriage rituals and the rules to be followed, grounds for divorce, grounds for inheritance and division of property, which is why in our country we have the Special Marriages Act, we have the Hindu Marriages Act, we have the Divorce Act, and so on and so forth. Parsis have their own set of rules. And often there are problems because of these multiple acts, and these cases land up in court. So is it time, as the courts keep reminding us, to look at Uniform Civil Code? Or will it find its own way when the country and the people of this country are ready for something like that? We say good evening to Sudesh Verma, spokesperson for the BJP, Siddharth Luthra, former Additional Solicitor General, Ram Pratap Singh of the Samajwadi Party, Sudesh Radhan Nigam, advocate with the Supreme Court, and Dr. Faizan Mustafa, academician and legal scholar, Vice Chancellor for Nalsar University of Law. Mr. Luthra, good evening to you. Let's start off with you and your view on, whether it is time and if the courts should get into it, if the courts can only send reminders to the government and the parliament needs to look at Uniform Civil Code. Where do you stand on the UCC debate?
I think speaking as a proud citizen of this country, I believe that when the founding fathers had put in Article 44 that we should work towards a uniform civil code, and Dr. Ambedkar talks about having a uniform civil code, it's a shame that we've not had that implemented, enforced in the law since the Constitution came into being. There have been repeated reminders from the Supreme Court way back from 1985 that, we need to clear up personal laws, matrimonial laws, divorce laws, and ensure that there's uniformity. And I believe that would inure to achieving the constitutional objective and achieving the rights of individuals and fulfilling the constitutional mandate. And therefore, in my view, it is a need of the hour to have the political will to bring about a uniform civil code implemented in practice. As you know, that when the Hindu laws were sought to be reformed, there was a lot of pushback, and then beyond that, no other law could be reformed. And therefore, we've remained in a state of stagnation. Now, while individuals should be allowed, and I believe the Constitution is very clear on this, to follow their own rituals, ceremonies, etc., but we're looking at divorce, succession, inheritance, and these issues definitely need to be part of the Uniform Civil Code. We have a civil procedure code which applies to everybody. We have a criminal procedure code which deals with liberty and which applies to everybody. We have the same laws, so why not a Uniform Civil Code?
Why not the Uniform Civil Code? That's the big question. Let me just also read out what Justice Pratibha Singh observed. In modern Indian society, which is gradually becoming homogeneous, the traditional barriers of religion, community and caste are slowly dissipating. The youth of India belonging to various communities, tribes, caste or religion who solemnize their marriages ought not to be forced to struggle with issues arising due to conflicts of various personal laws, especially in relation to marriage and divorce. That is what was said by the Delhi High Court. So, is that becoming a big trend and a big problem now? That is the question that I want to ask our panelists, and I want to take it across to Dr. Faizan Mustafa. Dr. Mustafa, as you know, communities mingle, and we see more and more instances of couples from various communities or even within the same community but wanting to do things their own way. Is it time to have one set of simple rules so people don't have to keep running around to figure where do they fit in?
Thank you, Tanvi. The latest Pew survey tells us entirely different story. 99% of Hindus, 98% of Muslims are having a spouse from the same religion. So what the Delhi High Court Justice is saying, that India is moving towards homogeneity and the barriers of caste and religion are falling, I think the facts don't say so. Moreover, we already have a special marriage law. If people of different faiths are marrying, which is the policy of the law that they should marry, then you will have a uniform civil code called Special Marriage Act, and your succession will be governed by Indian Succession Act. But the problem is that state after state, we are passing love jihad laws. On the one hand, we want uniform civil code. On the other hand, we don't want people of one religion to marry women of another religion. We are undermining the agency of our women that they cannot select their spouses. So I think there is some contradiction. Then Tanvi, I also have a very strong point to tell you that there are a number of directive principles, but the entire focus is only on Article 44 and Article 48, which is talking about prohibition of cow slaughter. How come we are not paying any attention to other directive principles? For instance, Article 39 is saying that there would be no concentration of wealth. We are having 1% people who possess 77% of wealth. And third, I personally believe it is not important to have one uniform code. What is important are our laws gender just. I have repeatedly written a number of articles that uniform civil code should be made, but in a piecemeal manner, so that it does not polarize our society and there is no strong opposition to it. So you can pass one law today on marriage registration, another law tomorrow. For instance, the triple divorce law was passed. Then similarly, I would say that we should also try to ensure that mere normative changes in law do not bring about a social reform. Hindu law has been reformed. This case is about a Hindu Marriage Act between two Hindus. Yet there is a dispute because even for Hindus, there is no uniform law. The Hindu Marriage Act says that the spouses should not be related to each other for certain generations from father's side and certain generations from mother's side. In South, in Hyderabad itself, I have attended 5 weddings where the bridegroom was the real maternal uncle of the bride. In North, it would be considered incest. So India is a country of diversity. We uphold heterogeneity rather than homogeneity.
Okay, so Dr.
Moreover,
Mustafa,
just because you have different laws, that does not mean that the problem is there. Even about Code of Criminal Procedure, apparently it looks like that you have one law, but number of states have made amendments to criminal procedure.
Okay, so
even about penal code on blasphemy, recently Punjab made a different law from what is provided under Indian Penal Code. We must ensure that our laws are gender just.
yes.
In any case, it is a policy decision and the initiative must come from the government.
Yes.
Government, just like Hindu Code Bill, should form a committee of experts. There is a blueprint of uniform civil code. Let us first have a blueprint, then this debate will start.
Okay, so Dr. Mustafa, you've made some valid points. As far as the blueprint is concerned, I think efforts were made earlier. The Law Commission issued this one, questionnaire that all the stakeholders, including the political parties, are supposed to respond to. Some sent back empty papers, and then there was a report that came out by the Law Commission in 2018 where they gave, a certain view of basis the responses they got. So, of course, a lot more will have to be done.
The report of Justice Chauhan of Law Commission,
yes,
that uniform civil code is neither desirable.
Correct.
Isn't so?
Yes, correct.
Not feasible.
Yes, let me read out some of those parts that you just said. Not required to reconcile conflicts in personal family laws with constitution. Resolution of this conflict does not mean abolition of differences. This is what the Law Commission's report in 2018 said. We have, and then they go on to say that we've dealt with laws that are discriminatory rather than providing with uniform civil code. Uniform civil code is neither necessary nor desirable at this stage. So now I want to pause here, Dr. Faizan, and start with you and then take it to Desh Ratham and then to Sudesh Sharma as well. Let's just talk about the different rules which are there under different acts about marriages and divorces. I agree, like you say, they need to be gender just. They need to be fair, just, and not cruel in any manner. More often than not, it is towards one gender and then the other. Now, what is that one example that you can give us with, to argue that let them be separate? That it's okay for, multiple religions to have their own set because they need that as part of their own culture. Most of them have the same grounds for divorce, barring a few which you would agree should go away any which ways if we talk about gender justice or equality.
Tanvi, let me answer Dr. Faizan Mustafa. He said we have already a special marriage act where interfaith marriages take place. This is not about interfaith marriages. This is about marriages within the same religion. Nobody likes unilateral divorce. Nobody likes polygamy. Nobody likes gender inequality, that the women have lesser rights than the men. This is about universal values, universal human rights. So I would rather call it universal code rather than a uniform civil code. Once you call it a universal values code, you take it to a higher level. And all those confusions that people have in the name of uniform will go. And let us see, we have a uniform criminal code working so well since a very long time. But then the problem of vote bank politics arises, the problem of minority appeasements or tribe appeasements or caste appeasements start into, which may be in the same religion, all those starts working into play. And therefore, we have to come out of it. We don't want any Shah Bano movements now. In fact, the voice is coming from the various tribes, religions, whether it is Muslims or Hindus, to have that universal values. And it's about human rights. How can people be happy when they have that halala going on? I'm just offhand example, or the kind of injustices which are there in the Hindu society as well. So let's not view the entire issue from the prism of religion. It is about nobody is interfering in your rituals. No, as Siddharth Luthra also said, nobody is interfering in your mode of worship, how you worship. That's a very personal thing. You sit at home or in a mosque or in a temple, you do that. But once it is about human rights, universal values, we don't have to be narrow-minded.
Okay.
And especially the love jihad examples are there. I can quote examples after examples where deaths have taken place, inducement.
No, so I don't want to go that road at all. You know it and I know it. Yes. Let's stick to what we're talking about right now. And Dr. Faizan, that question to you also, because since you are arguing in favor of still having different sets of laws, my question to you is, give me one example where it merits for marriage and divorce right now. I'm not looking at the other aspects. One example where it merits to have this difference.
No. I'm not saying whether it merits or not. I'm saying it is better to have piecemeal reform, as we have been having from the British time. You will have one reform today, another reform tomorrow, third day after. If you are talking of uniform civil code that you want it in one go, then the opinion gets divided. Our purpose is to have gender just laws, and not only the personal laws, even the laws we made after the commencement of the Constitution. Look at the agriculture land laws in different states. Is still in the presence of the son, we are not giving share to the daughters, and to save these laws, we have put them in the 9th schedule. Why? There are any number of laws. I can go on and on to give you examples which are gender unjust.
Yes.
But our focus somehow, for whatever reasons, is on one directive principle. I give you another example. Supreme Court said in one order that liquor will not be served within 500 meters of a highway. Editorials were written in all newspapers against the Supreme Court judgment. Punjab declared all their roads that they are not national highways.
Yes.
And ultimately, the law was diluted. It was a directive principle. It was in furtherance of a directive principles. My point is, directive principles shows the aspirations of the people. We must realize them. They are definitely the positive obligations of the state. I am not opposing uniform civil code. I have never opposed.
Okay.
My only thing is how to go about it.
How to go about it.
What we did about Hindu law, same thing we should do about uniform civil code. Because many Hindus may not be willing to accept uniform civil code. When the uniform civil code will come, maybe the tax exemption of the Hindu joint property will go. Today, if there are 2 IAS officers, husband and wife, issueless, if they die, then the property of the husband will go to husband's father, and the property of daughter-in-law will also go to the father-in-law.
Yes.
That law will also change.
Yes.
Isn't it?
No, so, I will just say one thing to what you're saying. For those who make the argument that if you bring a uniform civil code, what are the, which are the laws that you're going to pick? You will end up picking up the laws from the majority. I think it's an oversimplification of the intent of what we are trying to do here. Yes, Mr. Luthra has a point. Mr. Luthra, yeah.
I think Dr. Mustafa makes out a better case than all of us for the need for uniformity in laws and for gender-sensitive laws. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
The piecemeal system, with respect, may not work. Yes, of course, society has to be ready for it. But I'll give you an example. We had the Hindu unified family, or the Hindu undivided family, where daughters did not have rights. It took the lawmakers till the mid-90s to give those rights. It took the Supreme Court till last year to give a judgment to say daughters have certain rights in ancestral property. Now the point is, legislation which should have, we've had a constitution since 1950, really these reforms need to be brought in. And therefore my question to Dr. Mustafa is going to be, I have the greatest regard and respect for him as an academic and as our teacher. When will the time be right for reform? And that's a question we need to ask. Why is it necessary that courts need to prod any government to say, please have reform? And while I understand there is a problem with, there's a concern with love jihad laws On the one issue, we are having love jihad laws. On the other hand, we talk about uniform civil code. But perhaps the uniform civil code will resolve a lot more societal angst and give us all a clearer picture. It'll probably bring us all a lot more in a better level playing field, and there will be perhaps a move towards homogeneity in society.
Okay, so let's also see what the third option is, which is what the Law Commission seems to be indicating towards. Dr. Mustafa, if you'll just give me couple of more minutes, I have two panelists who haven't spoken yet. I'll just go to them and I will come back to you. Mr. Sudesh Sharma, would that be a good way to start off? The Law Commission itself makes recommendations of much needed changes in each of these acts, whether it's the Hindu law, or the laws for Parsis or the Special Marriages Act. They have made recommendations of changes which are needed for each of those segments. Can we at least begin with that?
Tanvi, it's a democratic country. One can have opinion depending on one's inclination. But the fact remains that we as a party and a government also, we are committed to Uniform Civil Code implementation, and that means that it will be evolved. And when we talk of Uniform Civil Code, you can see our 2019 manifesto that speaks about it very loudly. And you have seen that Union Minister Rajnath Singh ji, till recently on 21st of March, while addressing the state executive meeting of the BJP in Lucknow, said that Uniform Civil Code is very much in the agenda and the government has to implement it. So our commitment is there. It's good that the court's order will propel the government to think I'm speaking on behalf of the party to take it up on an urgent basis. But when we talk of Uniform Civil Code, let me clarify at the outset that we are not talking of anti-Muslim code or anti-somebody code or pro-Hindu code. It is something that should be evolved, and every community should respect that because they will participate in the evolution of that code. So why should one be scared? You see, Dr. Mustafa spoke about love jihad. Love jihad is an issue of criminality, isn't it? Law and order situation in this state. And it is not talking of don't marry Muslims. Who says? It is talking about Hindus also, isn't it? It is not against Muslims. It's against all communities who try to lure or force people using guile to marry. So we must understand laws in perspective. And we are committed. Article 44, you see, it has been an issue of debate since a long time. Of course, the Law Commissioner has recommended a few things. And
So then answer, Mr. Sudesh Sharma, answer what is being said here and what Siddharth Luthra also was saying. When would be the time? You are committed, yes. You've often made noise about it, yes. The Law Commission was asked to, carry out this exercise under your government, yes. They prepared a report, all of that is done. Now, what are we waiting for? When will this right time come? And like Dr. Faizan said, not opposed to UCC, but what's the method that you will use to get it about?
You will come to know about it, Tanvi, when the process starts, because when triple talaq was abolished, it came after a long debate, isn't it?
No, it came after an SC order.
Yeah, no, of course, SC order, but the society was prepared for that, isn't it? A lot of debate took place even on your channel, and this is how consensus is being built. Even on Ram Temple, you see, although it came because of judicial order, you have seen the kind of debate that has been going on, and judiciary is not, isolated. It is in the context of society's debate also.
Yes.
So judiciary has given a verdict, and of course the government will look into it because a High Court judgment cannot be just whisked aside. And I'm sure that this is going to propel the government to bring it on top of the priority.
Well, the Supreme Court has talked about it and has urged the government to look into it. Now, the Delhi High Court has sent a reminder by sending its judgment to the Law Ministry to say, well, this is what we think you should do, because there are many instances. The Law Commission has already given its view. So, Ram Pratap Singh, when will the political parties, the lawmakers and the legislators of our country get together and start having a serious conversation of how to bring about reforms?
Thank you, Tanvi. One nation, one law, especially when it concerns the personal laws of various communities, in India seems a very, very idealistic, almost futuristic to me. Definitely, I feel the nation is not ready for it at the moment. what we have to understand is that in India, it's not just one big Hindu community. Within Hindus also, there are so many differences on their personal codes. When we go into the tribal communities, we don't even know whether they practice Hinduism or a particular religion. If we go into northeastern India, there the complications are huge. Then of course, we have the Muslims, we have Buddhists, we have Jains, we have Sikhs, and so on and so forth. So it sounds very nice, and could be like a future goal for our democracy to have one law on every single subject. But at the moment, I mean, there are much bigger problems facing the nation and the society.
So, Mr. Singh, I won't let you get away so easily with that generic statement. Let me try and understand what you mean when you say, Mr. Singh, if you can hear me, yeah. Let me try and understand what you say when you say the country is not ready for one nation, one law. Let's take one specific example. You can give me an example from the marriages aspect, from the inheritance aspect, from the divorce aspect. Give me one example which can become problematic when we say one set of laws. The grounds for divorce is XYZ, including adultery, cheating, cruelty, pushing for dowry, all of those that should legitimately be part of ground for divorce.
So if you ask me for one example, I will talk about the law of inheritance, how it varies across the nation. And within the Hindu community, if you look at it in Kerala, there is a different law of inheritance. When you come to North India, it's different. You go to Assam, again, certain parts have a different law of inheritance. Now, these are all tied up with the identity of these communities. It's not about having a beautifully crafted one single law. For generations and hundreds of years, the identities of these communities are tied up with these laws. And suddenly we tell them that, sorry, now to be part of this great Indian democracy, you have to just follow what the majority decides. So that's where I see a problem. I'm not saying that we should not be heading in that direction, but it's a very, very long drawn process. And as a political party, I would say that we have seen a lot of hasty decisions being taken by the BJP government, which has led to a lot of trauma for the common man. And I don't want yet another thing to start where we lead to a very sorry situation later on.
Okay. Sudesh Verma and Siddharth Luthra both want to make points, one after the other. Please, Mr. Siddharth Luthra first, and then I go to Sudesh Verma. Yes.
I find it difficult to accept that something which has been in the Constitution since 1944, since 1950, is now, we are now told, we are not ready for it yet. The fact is that any legislative reform will bring about questions, and there's a democratic process, there's a judicial process to challenge it. If people are dissatisfied, that can be challenged on the anvil of constitutionality and conformity with the Constitution and whether it's a valid exercise of legislative power. So the issue really is, and Dr. Mustafa made this point also, there are a number of directive principles. It's time that we try to bring those into reality. It's not just the job of the courts to keep giving reminders to the government, irrespective of which government is in power. And we're not talking about, and I find it interesting that even so far as the Law Commission was concerned, Justice Chauhan gave a report within this administration, and even that has been sitting since 2018.
Yes.
So why don't we look at doing legislative reform and not just talk about it? Because speaking for myself, speaking for a citizen, speaking for a country which is now fast seeking to propel itself as the center of the world, at the center of the world, it is time for us to reform our personal laws, especially in the context of inheritance and also in the context of the choice of individuals to marry and the manner of getting a divorce. We need to make it rational and logical. I'm not saying we should lose our traditions and our culture, but at the same time, that is one part of it. That's the private part of it. But there has to be a conformity to the constitutional rights of equality, of the freedoms provided within the Constitution. And I really can't see why anybody across the political spectrum should be saying we're not ready for it 70 years. If we're not ready, then the question is, we need to ask, why did our political class take so long to get us to make sure that we are not ready for it?
Yeah. No, for
that's
example,
a question that needs to be put to some of our friends out there.
For example, many would make that argument even for when the instant talaq, instant triple talaq debate was going on, that we aren't ready. Many would say that even now, but others would agree that this had become a problem in the way it was being misused and abused against women. Similarly, we now have instances from within the Parsis community. If they marry, if a woman marries outside the community, the ostracization is still a very stark reality, and women are having to go now to the court for relief. So, Mr. Sudesh Verma.
The matter is pending.
Yes, it is pending before the court. Mr. Sudesh Verma, one by one, together, piecemeal, however, when let's get started with the process and continue the conversation.
Tanvi, I'm really surprised when people from political parties try to make it a political issue. Because, see, it's not an issue of what the BJP thinks. It's not a question of imposing what the BJP wants. Because we're not saying Hindu courts should be imposed on people. Have you ever said that? No. You see, as I understand it, you see, all the communities, like say even religious communities like Muslims or Hindus, or say Nambudri, whose example Dr. Mustafa was giving, you see, they will continue to have the tradition. It's about you marry through Saptapadi or you marry through Nikah. Even live-in relationship is recognized now by the Supreme Court of India, isn't it? But if you enter into marriage, you create certain responsibilities. And when you decide to leave that lady, or the lady decides to leave that man, because it is equal now, so there are certain obligations that must be met. If you want to have a passport, you need to register your marriage, isn't it? The moment you register your marriage, you are actually coming closer to uniform civil code. Let us come to succession. When men and women are equal, when daughters and sons are equal, why should there be unequal treatment? This is as simple as that. In the case of adoption also. So no community should oppose it. We are not against any community's practice, say, of nikah, whether you want to have nikah in this way or that way, whether someone wants to marry with 1 feet up or 1 feet down, it doesn't matter. But the moment you enter into marriage and that marriage is registered, then it becomes an obligation for you to follow the law of the land when it comes to divorce, inheritance or adoption, isn't it? As simple as that. So naturally, we are matured enough to evolve a law on that basis, which will be acceptable by everyone.
Okay. Let me get in Ram Pratap Singh to respond to that.
Tanvi, can I come?
So,
yes, Mr. Nigam, next to you.
What I would say to our BJP spokesperson here, that yes, it's very an idealistic situation where we have to make people understand that what the law is doing is good for them. Well, that is the idealistic side of it. But in practicality, when you get down to the ground, how easy do you think it is to explain to the people who have been practicing a certain way of life for thousands of years? So there is a huge mismatch between the two. What Siddharth Tulsa said, it makes sense that yes, it's in the constitution, it has to be done, and if we don't wake up in 70 years, then when are we going to do? Well, I also agree that we have to do, but the process for that has to be very, very, very well defined. A lot of research, a lot of inputs from the ground before. I mean, as an opposition party here, what I'm trying to say is that we don't want yet another bumbling scheme coming down, and then we, the common people, have to bear the problems because of that.
But the way to do that, Ram Pratap Singh, would be via conversation, right? Rather than saying that the people are not ready for this, or a large section of the country is not ready for this, we have to explain to them where they may be ill-informed or where they may have been misguided. For example, this very immediate reaction that you see from a lot of people is, oh, you just want to bring in a majoritarian law and take away what we have. We will only know what law comes in once you all sit across the table and have a conversation of how it's going to take place and what that law will be. That trust deficit, that fear that has, may have come into people's minds, that is a responsibility of all political parties to fix. I find certain political parties adding fuel to that fire rather than explaining it to people what is the real intent here. Deshrathan Nigam wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
Tanvi, in fact, nobody can deny that we have diverse set of culture and practices all over India, as was being pointed out by various panelists. But the fact remains, you must collate all those laws, collect at one places, all those customs and practices, and test them on two parameters: gender justice and gender equality, and complete absence of cruelty. These two parameters can be a very good beginning point, and you can start rationalizing the laws. And I think most of the people will agree on these two concepts. And generally there is general discrimination and cruelty. And once you take care of this, I think most of the laws can be rationalized, and you can then truly call them uniform.
Dr. Faizan, would you agree? As an approach, since you say there is a problem with the approach. Yeah.
No, I think he is right. But Tanvi, I would say you are asking timeline. I said it. What we did about Hindu Code Bill, we should do for UCC. And what did we do? We constituted an expert committee of Hindu law experts. Constitute a committee of Muslim law experts, let them sit together, come up with a code, and then we have to take good elements of all laws. Just to give you an example. In the Hindu law reform, we said that the daughters will also get a share equal to sons. Then we gave the power to make will. Now, invariably, if will is made in favor of son, there is no property left for the daughters to get. And that's why if you look at the ownership of the property of Hindu women, it is much less compared to what they are entitled to. And that's why I'm saying merely changing law, enacting a uniform civil code will not bring about a social change. If we want to bring about a social change, then we must change our attitude about gender. All our laws, including secular laws, laws made after independence, are patriarchal because we are all patriarchal.
Yes. Well, yes. I agree with you. For example, let me add to that, Dr. Mustafa. Let's look at the state of affairs when dowry is concerned. Dowry is a crime. Asking for dowry is a crime in our country. There are a good set of laws, but it still takes place. Can we use that argument to say don't outlaw it, don't make it a crime, let it continue until people are ready to stop asking for money to marry off their son to your daughter? We can't wait for people to accept.
I never said that.
Yeah.
Tanvi, I am not saying that.
Okay.
I am saying mere change in law does not bring about a social
One minute, please.
What educational thing we are doing?
Sudesh, 1 minute, please. Let me just understand what Dr. Faizan is saying. Yes.
I am saying just changing law to score a political point or ideological point will not change.
Will not change the mindset. Okay, fair enough. Yes, it won't. It will take a while.
If we want a change, if we want gender justice in our society, then we have to change this patriarchal mindset.
Yes. Well, that is a long, really long battle that we will continue to fight, but nobody is stopping that fight. What we can do, as I thank my panelists, is what we can do. Begin with things that can be changed. Begin with things that can be fixed. Now, whether you want to call it one nation, one law, or a uniform civil code, or, approach it in any other manner. The fact of the matter is there are a lot of differences in various acts and laws for marriage, divorce and inheritance, and largely if you see the problematic ones are the ones which are in favor of men and against women, which are discriminatory, which are cruel in many other ways, and those have to be rectified. So if the current government or the parliament and political parties don't have the gumption to at least go ahead and outright come up with a uniform civil code for the entire country, they can at least begin with bringing in reforms in each of these segments, just as what Law Commission has recommended. Completely out of time. We'll carry on this conversation another day. Thank you so much for joining us on Urban Debate.